there. Today we're talking about safety rule number 8 and number 9. Number 8 is play daily, even if it's only 3 minutes. And number 9 is play an easy warm-up or a very easy song first. What we're talking about, well, keep in mind that the people I imagine that I'm talking to in this lesson are my age or older, maybe a little younger, but you know, there's issues with stiffness, inflammation, that sort of thing. And playing the guitar can definitely make it worse if we're not careful. And really that's what the safety rules are all about. How do we do this without getting hurt? Or if we've been hurt, how do we get back what we had before? With things like arthritis and inflammation, what we're able to do with our hands is a use it or lose it sort of thing. But I don't mean to say that you can't get it back. You can get it back. And we have to do that very carefully. Yeah, one thing I have here is if you do have a break and you can't play every day, you go on a long trip or something, just go back in easy. And for some of you people who are younger, teens or 20s or 30s, you might not relate to this very well, but there is still, you just have to know your own body, really, and there's things we can do to be careful. Okay, so I'll go into some personal experiences that helped me to learn. Really, for what it's worth, my personal experience and the experience of a friend. I'm not giving medical advice, so when you decide to do something, make sure that you know that it's right for you, and you know, maybe talk to your doctor when you try something new. So a mistake I made when I, again briefly, if you haven't heard my history, is I had a severe injury when I was about 37 years old from playing guitar. And when my hand hurt, and then I had surgery, it got better, but during the next 20 years, I was very protective of my hand, and when it hurt, I would not play. Actually, here's how the story went. My guitar teacher gave me an article to read, and this is not just any old guitar teacher. This was my classical guitar teacher in college, who is a professional classical guitarist. And I took that article and I read it and I took it to heart, and it said basically, if it hurts, don't do it. You need to stop and rest. And so that's where I got that notion, and I actually did stop playing whenever it hurt, because I felt like, oh, I need 6 weeks to heal from whatever just happened. And so that left me with not playing a lot. But then what happened was it got to a point where sometimes Hamp and I would have frequent gigs and I would be forced to play, even though I was afraid it was the wrong thing to do. But gradually, be very observant. Through being observant, I noticed that when we had a lot of gigs, my hand was actually better. And that's when I started to realize that I was dealing with something that I needed to play often in order for my hands to stay loose. And if I didn't play, then it would stiffen up. There's different kinds of pain. There's the dull, achy pain, which you get from stiffness and pushing things a little too far. And then there's a sharp, stabbing pain, which you definitely want to stop when there's either stop playing or stop doing the thing that makes the sharp stabbing pain. That is injury, and we'll talk more about that later. There's some safety rules about that also later on. Then I read another article that said what it just said, that if you have a sharp stabbing pain, that's injury, and that's when you want to stop. But the dull, achy pains, you just kind of have to experience it. And often playing, I would play some. I wouldn't play too much, but I would play some, and then gradually things would loosen up and the pain and stiffness would go away. I had so much recovery in this way that when I encountered somebody that complained that they can't play anymore because of arthritis or stiffness, I had not been diagnosed with arthritis at that point, by the way, but I just felt so much stiffness going away that when somebody complained to me that they couldn't play anymore because of arthritis, I was skeptical and I wanted to encourage them to play anyway, but I also didn't feel confident that I was able to give good advice. But this friend just happened at some point to decide he was going to play anyway. It hurt, but he was going to play anyway. He missed it too much. And he eventually reported to me that when he started playing regularly, the pain and stiffness went away. So I do know that sometimes there's different kinds of arthritis, and I know some people's situation is much different, but sometimes these abilities that we've lost, or the flexibility that we've lost, the stiffness that we have, these things can be reversed. The only other thing I have to say, again, I can't give specific advice, but I think it's good to know that diet can make a huge difference. Diet and exercise, I mean, playing the guitar is part of our exercise. Diet and exercise can make a huge difference in stiffness and things like arthritis. And some people think arthritis is just something you get because you're growing older. But I can tell you, again, from personal experience, 10 years ago or so, when I was more like 50 instead of more like 60, I think even in my late 40s, I was waking up every day feeling stiff and achy. Like I would say, I mean, no disrespect to anyone, but I would call myself, I feel stiff and achy like an old woman. And it just didn't seem right that, it was time for me to feel stiff and achy every morning. But I won't go into specifics because I don't want to give, it's risky giving advice about things like this, but I will say it can happen through certain dietary changes and supplements and so forth. It can be tricky. It's easy to come to false conclusions. It's easy to get it wrong. It can be, I understand, it can be hard to learn what we have to do, but I just want to say it can happen. There's a lot of information out there about anti-inflammatory diets, that sort of thing, but it depends on the person. And I figured out what works for me, and I do not wake up feeling like an old woman anymore. And I know that change is a big one, is gluten. A lot of people don't realize that if you eat something with gluten in it and you don't have the immediate gut reaction, it can still affect you. I can eat a little bit of gluten and it won't affect me right away, but 2 weeks later, I will feel stiff and achy like an old woman. So that's just something I know is true that I feel safe saying specifically. So so that's rule 8 and 9. I think that's all I have to say about that. And we'll come back more to some of the physical things later with how to recover, if we have pain. But those are the rules. Play daily, and always play an easy warm-up first, or an easy song first. Things will get warm up and it'll be easier to play, that B minor chord or whatever it is that hurts sometimes. And if you have a big long break, when you pick up your guitar, when you get back home, don't play the hardest thing, play something easy at first, go back in with shorter practice sessions and ease your way back into it. And next time we'll talk about safety rule number 10. Bye-bye.